What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. We're changing the name. It's no longer going to be called The Gatekeepers, so we're not going to introduce that. It's just going to be Harpoon and Henny.
For any of my listeners, when they hear what my other secret project is, I had a name change as well, and I just feel like sometimes if just something doesn't feel like genuine and authentic, it really just it just disconnects, and it just wasn't sitting for us. We came up with the name originally.
No. You came up with a name. It has to be The Gatekeepers. We ran with it, and then it's her decision to change it anyway.
I had no idea what we really wanted to call it. We should have just called it Harpoon and Henny from the start. Like, we should have just really rolled with that. But look,
we should have really called it that.
You know, you live and learn. But yeah, welcome to Harpoon and Henny. Don't ask me.
We're going to change the name soon. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, we are back for another session. You are not a top G. Anyone that has listened to any of the Tate stuff, if you've never heard Tate before, that is just Harpoon, just really resonating it all. But today we are super glad to be back on the podcast. We're sorry about the little break. We've both been super busy, which I know is not an excuse at all. But yeah, welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. And speaking on Tate, I've been wanting to do an episode on this guy for a long time.
He really has.
We're going to do a pretty big, hefty amount of time on Tate today because Henny is a woman of power and master manipulator. So if any female can understand the male mind, you've got yourself a huge advantage. Now, I was just showing Henny some clips prior to this about Tate, where he just did a recent interview. Yeah, so we'll give some context, but
yeah.
Because I know you're going to try and do all this stuff.
No. I'm just saying for like a majority of listeners that are coming in today, like you might have no idea who Tate is, or maybe you do know who Tate is and you've got a preconceived idea of what he stands for and who he is because you've just seen tiny little clips on TikTok. And today we just want to really break down and further discuss more than just the peripheral layer and go so much deeper into it.
Yes. So Andrew Tate, he is a world champion kickboxer. He is now a business owner. He runs a course called Hustlers University, which he's got about 70,000 male audience or male young dudes, probably between the age of like 18 and 25, that all subscribe. They pay a monthly fee to listen to him. Now, Tate's got a rather old school look on life. He sort of goes back to the ancient traditional values of like marriage and like looking after a woman, but he's also got some pretty crazy views as well, which will keep going back and forth. He has been banned from every social platform.
Yeah.
They did like a group banning all at once. He refers it to as the Matrix, as society is like the Matrix, and he's been banned from all platforms, and he's now back on Rumble, which is a site which doesn't censor anyone, I guess.
It's kind of like YouTube, like it's a new version of YouTube, but just think about it as completely uncensored. So you're able to discuss and jump on there and talk about whatever you are, and you are uncancelable, which is a huge thing for this day because of our call-out culture.
Exactly. I think we're going to swap to that as well because obviously it's an upcoming platform. Russell Brand is another person who's also got some pretty outlandish views, but also he's on both sides of many arguments. So he's moved to Rumble as well. So I think it's a great platform for us to head over to because we also have some pretty uncensored views also. So yeah, he's been banned.
Yeah.
I'm probably the most person that I show Henny lots of little clips because a lot of females have just made up their mind. He's got like a lot of misogynistic clips out there that can come off really offensive.
Wrong.
But
like, I don't think it should be called misogynistic clips. I think it should be called misinterpret misogynistic clips more so. A lot of the segments that are shown and the little pieces that are shown and the message is amplified by the people talking about him frame him as a misogynistic male. But it's the fact that they're actually, I feel like the definition of misogyny for most of the people that are calling him a misogynist is completely confused. But that has been the easiest way for social media to call him out and to ban him from society, and that has been the core reason. And I guess most channels pulling him down is because the females' disagreement with the way that he talks about females and the way that he sees the world.
Yeah, and like you said, it's all little short clippets on TikTok that have gone viral from a long form conversation, whereas 2 hours long, and he's giving a rather long explanation, but the people have taken out a tiny little clip. And he's also said, like, when he was making some of the more outlandish views, he's obviously curated and changed the way he speaks now, but his older content used to be more I don't know, reactive, I guess, because he wasn't as big as what he is now, and he was trying to build the platform. So he was saying his
hooks,
takes,
like real
his
clickbaity. He would say clickbait hooks that would encourage people to want to talk about it, and it's a really smart marketing strategy that he has gone from the get-go. He has said opinions that really cause a divide in society, and that's why he's ruffled so many feathers, and particularly ruffled the wrong feathers, because he has been able to just really look at the crux of society and then cause that really big divide between parties,
But a lot of his stuff is actually pretty straightforward, and the reason he's blown up is because a lot of people have similar values to him. And I'd say I watch him, I love his content because he's really entertaining, he's funny, he's got great charisma.
Yeah, he's smart.
He's super intelligent. His sentences are really well, like, strategically planned and thought out, like, so he can't be trapped.
It's not that. It's not thought out. It's before he speaks, before Tate will open his mouth and that he actually speaks, he takes time to digest the information that is given to him, and then he responds articulately.
It's similar to what Elon Musk does when there's a huge pause before you answer a question, and you think of both sides of what you could say, how it could be misinterpreted, because there's so many idiots out there that can misconstrue what you're saying. So they really think that can be used against me. Anyway, they're so far ahead of time.
Yeah. But I just want to also flag in at this point, because I think it's really important going into this conversation for anybody that is new to be watching the Tate information or absorbing our discussion. I don't agree with everything that Tate says, and I want to make that really stern and clear. I don't agree with anything that every person ever says, but there is a lot of information that he discusses, the way he sees the world, his approach to marketing and tactics, which I really condone and get behind. So I think that you just need to be really vigilant about the people that you're listening to, the information that you're absorbing, and the way that you form your own opinion of other people before you sort of take on this Tate conversation, which I think is a really exciting opportunity for Ryan and I to discuss. And honestly, from the start, I remember the first piece, or like I was getting hit with the TikToks and everything, and I was like, and Ryan was starting to share all of the Tate information on his stories and like really getting behind it, and everyone was calling Tate a red flag for so many different reasons. Like my TikTok was blowing up. Hell, I think I even did a TikTok about him being a red flag because I was
you didn't know at this point. You were just following trends as well, which is what 90% of people were doing.
100%, and I was 100% a culprit to it. But I feel like, you know what, I am the type of person that, yes, I'm very strong in forming opinion, but I always take the time of day to learn more and to understand a different side.
No. Yes, Incorrect. You would have not looked further if it was not for me.
Yeah,
100% you would have shut down.
You're completely wrong in that sentence, because the only reason I listened to it in the first place is I said, yes, I'll listen to it. I will watch the podcast.
Because I wanted you to listen to it. Yeah,
and I just said that I was
But if you didn't have me to say watch it, you wouldn't have watched it.
At that time, but I just said that I'm always willing to listen to another person's opinion.
I'll give you that, yeah. You're very willing. But once I had to show you, because you wouldn't have gone out of your own way to search up the full length. Exactly, but that's why I'm saying a lot of people, that's why they don't like him. There's a lot of videos they're like, why don't you like him? They've seen a few short videos. I even had a huge fight with my sister when we were back in Dubbo, because we both we literally didn't speak to each other because Kelsey, my sister, was trying to tell me how bad he was, and she's seen these few clips, and I was like, he's actually explained those 2 clips that you're talking about at length, which I've watched probably 20 hours of his content. And I agree, like Henny said, I don't agree with everything he says. I probably agree with probably 80 or 90% of things he says. But also, you got to be smart enough to know he is playing a character. Majority of the time, he's playing a character to make it funnier.
He's an entertainer.
But yes, like I said, I don't agree with everything, but majority of the stuff makes perfect sense, and that's why he's acquired a level of fame that he has. He literally went from no one to the most Googled man on the planet. He literally was more searched than Donald Trump, Joe Biden, all the presidents in America. He was more searched than them.
But he also was taken down extremely quickly. He had a window of time that he was able to go on ham, and he was going on every single podcast possibly available. Sorry for Nanook scampering around. He wanted every single podcast possible so that he could get his message out and he could get it loud and clear to every single group of society. So he was going on feminist podcasts. He was going on the Average Joe podcast. He was going on political podcasts, left wing, right wing, like extremist opinion people podcasts, which we just listened to one before where he's like, I don't necessarily agree with the opinions. He's like, most of the time I completely disagree with the opinions of the people on the podcast, but he was happy to disagree on the podcast and to get his reach further and to keep on like getting that virality, which he absolutely did, because it was so easy from every single interview that he did. There would have been an opinion that he said that was so outlandish that you as a podcaster would have been able to leverage off for your podcast to get massive growth. So there was huge incentive for the podcast person to have there. But also I think that honestly, a lot of these podcast people, interviewers, went into the interview with the idea that they were going to be the person that was going to make him trip up. And we just watched the one just then.
So we just watched the Piers Morgan one.
Yeah, the Piers Morgan one, which we would highly recommend for you to watch because I think...
Let's go back. So Henny sent me a clip because she knows how much I love watching his content, and it was Piers Morgan is a very controversial interviewer.
And I normally love Piers Morgan, to be honest. Like, I do like
I've only ever seen one other piece of Piers Morgan content, which was him on the Diary of the CEO, and I agreed with a lot of things he said on that. Yeah, but on this instance, I didn't agree with anything he said, and Tate made him look like an absolute fool. Yeah. This guy was coming at him with everything, and it was very similar to the interview of Jordan Peterson versus Anna, I forget her last name, on the show about feminism and stuff like that. And he had the gotcha moment. So Piers was really after him, and he was just... You watch the episode, guys, but I just showed Henny some of the back end of the interview where he was trying to catch Tate out. He would just throw in scenarios like a 14-year-old girl committing suicide, and it has nothing to do with him at all. No. Or another version, he said, someone that watches your content's dad gets this feeling he wants to murder people that are less alpha males, and he's like, what's this got to do with me?
It's literally the definition of a witch hunt, where you would use any and every excuse possible to try and pin him as the witch. Like, it was insanity. Like, I've never watched an interview where A, the person has interrupted the person that much, but also B, pulled out the most outlandish, ridiculous reasons to try and frame them as the reason for it. And I think that Tate did an amazing job of just turning around and being really cool, calm and collected, and just being like, what does this have to do with me? Like, what relevance does this information have? And I honestly think that even just regardless of the Tate conversation, I think that for people to watch an interview like this, it's really important for you, even if you're holding yourself in a conversation where someone is trying to pin you into something that has nothing to do with you, to be able to respond.
To be vigilant on how to get out and listen for traps and really listen to what they're saying and stick by your guns.
He was trying from every angle to make him to apologize, to justify, and ultimately, like, that you shouldn't have to be the type of person that does that. You shouldn't be the person that should ever have to, if you believe in the things that you are talking about and you have reasons for why you believe in your values and what you bring to the world, you should completely be unapologetic about it, which I have a huge amount of admiration for Tate for, in the way that he holds himself, because he is completely unapologetic for the way that he thinks and the message that he sends out in the world. And he is completely open to the idea that everybody else has a completely different opinion, but it has nothing to do with him what the other person's opinion is, because they can have their opinion and he can have his opinion.
And they can agree on certain things, on certain topics within that opinion, and some things you can disagree. Completely. Like what we said, I agree with Pierre's last interview, but I hated everything about this
100%.
one. I want to touch on everything. We're literally going to run through from start to finish. Like, we're going to touch on actual controversial things he said. We can actually give our breakdown on what we think.
I'm going to go into this. I've just been thrown into this one pretty raw, guys, and I just want to say straight up, yes, I do have quite a bit of knowledge, but I haven't watched as much information as Ryan, but I do think I've got a pretty good base knowledge.
She's got a pretty good base knowledge, but I've watched a lot of it, so I know quite in depth everything about his controversial things he said. I want to touch on his marketing ideas. So the way he actually got big, how we were saying he's been on every big podcast, he's actually a genius in the way, if you look at it from a marketing standpoint, he literally was on YouTube for 6 years prior. He came up with a plan. He said 6 months ago that he wanted to take over TikTok, and this is how he was going to incorporate a set of, strategies to get there. So he's got the Hustlers University, which is his paid subscription model. So what he's done is he teaches ways for younger males to make money because he believes a lot of his values are pro male. It's not anti women, but it's just for males. So it's just like building males up. Go to the gym, look after your woman, get rich. He believes in just a few core things. Wait on, let me finish. So his marketing idea is to teach people, young guys, how to make money. One of the ideas was to use TikTok as to use Reels as marketing, and then they can get deals off it and make actual money. So he said, if you guys don't have content or confidence to do it, use my content. So he would put in his own content. He would get these guys to chop it up for free. They're going to make Reels of him. So he's got people paying him $50 a month to teach him how to make money. They're using his content, chopping it up and posting it with him. He doesn't even have he doesn't even own a TikTok account because he knows he would get banned. He literally has 50,000 people posting content of him, and they're paying him to do it. It's actually
got shares in Tate, guys, and he's actually selling some of his programs too.
Yeah, no, I've never bought anything of him. I just really think he's just a genius in some aspects of how he's done his idea. Like, I'm smart enough to know I don't need to be buying this stuff and like being in this club. I just like his views and how he gets them across because he's super entertaining. But the fact that he's come up with a platform where you've got people posting your content, and then how he's done it, he comes from a marketing background, a sales background, and he's got an affiliation program. So if someone else joins
his pyramid scheme.
Yeah, it's very pyramid schemey. It's very pyramid schemey.
Getting your minions to do your work. I mean, he pretty much, he would call it network marketing is what he would call it to get away around it. But this is pretty much the definition of pyramid scheme in
It's a pyramid scheme to build your own personal brand.
100%, but a pyramid scheme means that there always has to be someone at the top of the pyramid, and he would deem that it would be a network marketing scheme, so that there would be someone that could be above him, which no one would ever get above him.
No. He's just saying
schemes are illegal.
No. His pyramid scheme means that if someone refers to the Hustlers University, that the person who uses their code makes money.
Yes, that's network marketing. But pyramids, I don't know if you know the difference between network marketing and pyramid schemes. So pyramid schemes are actually highly illegal. So what pyramid schemers then created was network marketing. So that's what he has created in doing so. But yes, it's incredibly smart. It's just
basically someone getting money by recommending you. It's not illegal.
It's a referral.
Yeah, you've got one for your clothing.
Yeah, that's
someone uses your code. It's the exact same situation.
Influencer referral. Okay, I don't know the actual infrastructure, so I'm not going to go deeper
into it. I'm giving you some.
I do agree that it's an incredibly smart marketing technique.
Yes. Okay.
Right, and I just nah.
Now he talks intensively about how they actually cancelled him. So
wait, can we continue the marketing stuff? Because I'd like to further discuss.
Yeah, you ask me questions because I know everything about him where you don't really know too much.
I want to talk to the audience about like some of the other things that I thought were really interesting of his marketing techniques. And I think that like for someone that's a content strategist who looks at some people and is sort of like highly analytical of like different techniques that they bring in and different marketing techniques, like you can learn a lot from Tate. And I think there was a particular podcast that it was an initial one that Ryan made me listen to, and it was talking about when he was first trying to make a lot of money. And what podcast was it? And he was talking about that he had the Cool Girl room.
Yes, so he had a chat room.
One sec, I'm going to continue because I'm telling the story. I just wanted to
What did you want to ask for me?
I just want to ask what was the podcast that he was talking about, that one on, the initial one.
The initial one, it was the Nelk Boys one where I think he was talking about the call girls.
We can add some links below, which I think will be kind of beneficial. So I'll get Ryan to compile like a few links if you want to watch it. But he created a cool room environment. He actually locked himself in a room for like hours, like days, I think, until he could come up with a concept and idea so he could make money, which I thought was like a really interesting idea because he like literally just left himself to doing absolutely nothing so that he could figure out how to make money in a really short amount of time. And then he brought up the concept of bringing girls into the call room environment, and the girls would sit on the computer, if you're not familiar with what call room girls are, writing back to dudes and getting money from them. Now, he realized very quickly that the girls were incredibly stupid and that he could juice more money out of these dudes if he just did it for himself.
No, he didn't say they were stupid. He said they were lazy. So his wording was, he's like, if you show a guy how to make $1,000 a day, they'll make $18,000 a day because they're like, sweet, I'm just going to keep working. He's like, whereas if you show some of these girls that were doing this call center job, or the video online chat job, that they only need $3,000 or $4,000 and they're happy with that. So they're like, oh, sweet, I only have to work an hour a day. So he's like, fuck that. He invited 6 girls. So when he was kickboxing, he used to have
girls everywhere
that he was sleeping with. So he came up with the idea to get them all in one room. And he said, hey, we're going to start doing this. We're going to work this many hours a day.
Also he had to tell all of the girls that he was dating all of these girls, but to get them to do this, which I think would have been an interesting conversation because they didn't even know that each other existed at that point. But yet all of these girls were willing and able to still do this knowing he had multiple girlfriends because they were getting looked after. So I think that that's really important to put in there too, yeah?
100%. So he got them all there. He laid out the rules and sort of told them like what you just said. And then 3 of them decided to leave because they thought, fuck that. 3 of them decided to stay. He said it was pure business, no sex, nothing was happening.
Yeah.
He sat down, he had the keyboard in front of them, and he's like, realized whatever they were saying was just dog shit. They didn't know how to famoose a guy. And the best way to famoose a guy, because only male knows how a male mind works.
Yeah.
So even for instance, I know what to say to guys for what you'd like need to be, when you ask me for advice on OnlyFans, because I'll be like, I know exactly what a guy wants to hear. Anyway, so guys understand the male mind more, obviously, because we know how we think and what attracts us to females, what they say, what... You put me off my game because my one point you've cut it out of me.
No, but anyway, what you're saying is that like you know how to make money from men. Girls don't understand what to say to men, and girls' play is actually really shit in the most part.
Majority of the time, yeah. So what he did was he sat behind the computer where this girl was sitting at. He said all she had to do was like sit there looking gorgeous. He's sitting there with his brothers typing way behind, like famoosing these guys. And they just got hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. Actually insane brainwash tactics they used.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can go there's so much to talk about.
We can do it in parts as well. Like we don't have to discuss it all, but like some of the tactics that he did was like really playing the card of the female, like which really speaks to men is like, you can help me, like you can help me do things. So like one of them was like as elaborate as like, I need a visa to come across the country to be able to see you, I need money to do so. And it was like this wild scheme that he was sitting there and this guy was just paying so much. And like as a creator on OnlyFans, you see how much money men spend and how impulsive and ridiculous their money spend is when they want something and they want it that bad. And these guys were under the impression that these girls were definitely going to travel the country, have dinner with them, become their future wife. Like they were under that impression.
Oh, famoosed.
They were famoosed, and Tate was able to just squeeze these dudes from so much money, and he was able to make so much money from his concept and idea, which is insanity.
It was crazy. He played on the fact of their emotions. So he said he came up with a rule after years of doing it. He said that the females could never meet up with the males because it just, the illusion wears off. Males aren't interested once they've actually met up with these girls. They did it once.
The fantasy's over.
Yeah, the fantasy's over. They did it once and they said they'd never, like, they had a bunch of his kickboxing mates all out to dinner at the table surrounding when they met up. This dude had no idea, but then he never wanted to see her again anyway. So the famoose they had on that guy was that, like Henny said, you'd pay for the visa and stuff like that. She'd be like, I wish I could come see, but I can't afford it. He's like, how much is it? 10 grand. Bang. Straight in the bank account. And then the guy would be expecting her to come over. So he's like, then what would play on the fact that he's just giving her heaps of money. And then he'd be like, are you coming over to see me? And she'd be like, oh, I didn't get on the flight because I had a headache.
Just ridiculous.
Just something stupid. Some stupid excuse to fire this guy up.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Like, I just spent this much money. So then he starts getting aggressive. And then she goes, and then the Tate replying, but he's like, would just say, oh, now I don't feel safe. I was actually on my way really thinking about coming over to see, but now you're getting so aggressive that I don't think I feel safe coming. And then this guy's like, you're a fucking scammer, like, fuck you. And then they're like, wow, like, I'm so glad I actually didn't come. You're actually like a psychopath. Like, just full put it back on them.
An elaborate, just a real elaborate planning and a lot of like
scheming. Put it back on them, scheming. And then he goes, literally 99% of the time. No, he said 100% of the time. 3 weeks later, they would come back and the cycle would start again. They'd come back with a fresh bag of cash. And he's like, the cycle would repeat, but you'd never meet up with them. Yeah. And they got guys for millions and millions of dollars.
Insane. Insane amount of money. Yeah.
There's so many ways we can just keep going. But so which way do you want to roll out of this and talk about what parts?
I think like we're on the marketing bandwagon at the moment, and his marketing tactics is where we're at. Ryan and I are really just flowing with this one. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's so much. So his marketing tactics, what I find interesting is a lot of his marketing tactics is like with his university, how he makes money.
How did you find him in the first place?
I first saw him on Nelk Boys podcast. I had no idea who he was. I actually saw his name popping up on TikToks. Didn't see actual videos of him. They're just like when Andrew Tate appears and like it was just like a Superman figure or some shit like that. Yeah. And I was like, who's this fucking Andrew Tate dude they're talking about? And then I saw him on the Nelk Boys podcast. And I agreed with probably like 80% of what he said. And I was like, wow, this guy's actually really fucking funny. Yeah. And I started searching more into him. That's how I came across him.
Yeah. So him going on the podcast, like of all different groups and types of people and stuff, I think that was like a really, really intelligent, smart way to get his message out extremely quickly. And I think even just then when he was on the Pierre's interview, he was saying that he was on like maybe 5 different podcasts a week on average, which is insane. If you think about 5 different podcasts per week with millions and millions of subscribers and different niches and different random people of different areas, like it is incredibly smart to use that as leverage. I mean,
but he also didn't like do one a month, like here and there for the last couple of years. It was just like nowhere. And then there was like, everyone was podcasting with him at once. It's almost, I don't know
I think he got
the backstory of this.
I reckon he would have got one big one and then all of a sudden controversial would have come out and then another big interviewer would be like, hey, I want to get this dude on. And then they just would have, maybe his marketing team
I reckon in a part of his scheme, he's planned to hit up all the big podcasts and he might have like done them months before and said, we're all going to release this in one go.
I would love to know. I don't think anyone
I think because there's no way you can have doing no podcast and then just be on all the big ones going bang, bang, bang. I reckon they've batch saved them and then put them one out after another really controversial close together. So it just went
one
bang,
tactic that
exploded.
You could do. Like that is 100% one tactic, but I personally believe that he would have got one big one and then his marketing team would have been able to use that big one and the controversial topics that he discussed. Like let's say it's the Nelk Boys, for instance, and it's like showing like the streams, the comments that are on it, and then pulling out certain controversial tips. They would have sent it then to the teams of these other really big podcast people and said like, hey, Tate's expressed an interest that he would like to go on your podcast, or would you like to? And they posed the question back and showed the data and then use that as leverage to then be like, fuck, we really need to jump on it before. And they would have hyped it up in the conversation in a true Tate way. They would have really G'd it up. They would have
G'd it up.
They really would have like sold it that like he was the up and coming and like he's the most controversial person in the market and that everyone's going to be talking about him, so that it would be a missed opportunity for those people to do so. I believe that that's probably the route he would have gone, and then it would have just like been like a ripple effect. Like it would have been throwing the pebble in the water and it would have been just like one after another.
Yeah.
And he's got unlimited money and resources.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So what's funny is, so this company he's got, right, he figured out $3.5 million a month from his subscribers, which is 30 million, 35 million a year, whatever. And he's like, when you evaluate a company, you usually multiply it by 8 times or 10 times. So he's like, the company's probably worth $350 million. Now, before he started this, he keeps all his content. He's like, I don't really need to be doing this. I've got money. I don't need to be doing this. But it's like, at the end of the day, you're still taking people's money. So it's one of these things. It's a great marketing tactic where he's like, I don't need your money. I'm here to give you all the advice you need. Yeah. Why do I need to give you this advice? Because I've got money. I don't need it. It was like, well, why are you asking for subscription money?
Because more money.
More money. So it's a bit of a like, it's quite funny. It's like almost a little bit hypocritical. Yeah. He's like, I'm just doing it to help the user. Yeah. Yes, but you're also getting money. If you wanted to really help, you'd do it for free. So
I don't think that he's ever tried to help anybody but
No,
himself.
of course not.
Like,
He's a master. He's a master seller.
Master manipulator, 100%.
But
and he has no other desire to be like Mother Teresa, helping anybody but himself and making more money so he can buy more Bugattis and more Raris.
I went off the point of what I was going to say then. When you
was it the Raris and the Bugattis that got me?
No. What was I going to say? Oh, anyway, let's go back to the part where, so one of his businesses, like we said.
Reminds me of the political thing that you just showed me the other day. The president.
Oh, that was like Joe Biden.
Just a little side note, you have to look at the Joe Biden. He's doing this like meant to be like motivating speech.
Wait,
and he's
let me
just
play it through the mic. It's fucking hilarious.
So he's doing this motivating speech and he's just like, wait. And he's just like, don't worry about it. And just swiftly moves on to a completely different topic because he completely caves.
Yeah. This is motivation from Joe Biden.
The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, the best way to get something done.
There he is, guys. The president of the United States.
There's Harpunio just having a fucking Biden moment.
Oh, I literally had a fool. Anyway.
You didn't need to hear what he was going to say anyway. Yeah?
So some of the controversial things, he's actually elaborated in long form, and I've heard his defended opinion on his own controversial things he said. Now, one of the ones that my sister brought up, which ties back into the call girls thing and just having girls around his house, there was one saying that he was trafficking female women, which is one of my sister brought up, and she's like, he's a women trafficker. I've seen the articles where it's like they're all just fake fucking articles, and he's like
fake news.
Literally. So the actual story of that one was, he said he was having a party at his mansion. Him and his brother were there. There was heaps of girls partying, all having a good time. He's got CCTV cameras in his house or footage. Anyway, one of these girls that was at his party is like an influencer, Instagram famous. Her boyfriend caught her on Instagram on another girl's story seeing she was at the house. Yeah. And he said, message her like, what the fuck are you doing? That's Andrew Tate's house, because he could see them in the background. She's like, oh yeah, like I don't want to be here. I'm so sorry. And then just hangs up. And then she goes, I'm trying to leave, or something like that. I'm trying to leave, hangs up. So the boyfriend rings the embassy of Romania saying my girlfriend's held captive. So that's when he's like, Tate's like 100%. If someone was getting held captive, I would want the Romanian government to act how they did. So they sent the fucking SWAT team to his house. He said at the time, him and his brother weren't there and none of the girls were there. He's like, no one was at the home. Yeah. They come storming in. They came back and they said they were looking for this girl, where the girl was just pretty much there partying, having a good time. He's like, they literally looked at the CCTV video. It was just like all the girls there by themselves partying, drinking, eating slices of pizza, walking around in their bikinis. Yeah. He's like, not held against their will at all.
Wait, was Tate there and stuff? You just said that
he was out and then he came back and then the girls were gone, sort of thing. I think they went out partying and then they came back and then everyone was gone. Yeah. So they weren't even there. Oh. Tate and his brother weren't even there. Yeah. The girls were partying, eating pizza and drinking vodka in their mansion.
Yeah, right.
They watched all the security camera footage and then the girls got in an Uber and left. Wild. And then so the boyfriend started this thing saying like he was held captive because that's what she said to get out of being in trouble. So that was the story of the whole, he is trafficking women. That's the trafficking women conspiracy done. There's many other ones. What was the one that Kelsey was saying about?
I think there's like so many different things that you could say. I mean, like for me personally, when I was first introduced with Tate and some of the information that he was saying, the big thing that I had, the big reason that and for many females when their partners were probably getting introduced to Tate and that was being shown en masse, was the fact that he is somebody that is an advocate for having multiple women in his life. He is an advocate that he doesn't necessarily have to be settled to one woman. He can have a non-monogamous relationship. And that's where Ryan was saying earlier in our podcast that he has very, I guess, ancient sort of ideas and ideals of like when you're
traditional
looking back
values from like he
of
really looks back
particular
to
cultures,
the past.
like of certain cultures, right? And like I think for a highly Western-driven society where misogyny is not misogyny, sorry.
Yeah, I hate that fucking
I
word.
wasn't saying for misogyny. I was thinking of when you're just singular relationship versus multiple. What's it called? Polygamy.
Monogamous.
But so if you have a monogamous relationship versus a polygamous relationship, he's saying that in Western societies that it is very much the norm and the idea to have just that singular person that you're with your whole entire life, whereas he is an advocate that you can you might have a wife, let's say, that you choose to have kids with, or you might have multiple wives that you have kids with and have offspring and everything, but you have to have the money to look after those offspring correctly. And so his ideas of it on that particular matter, I think that that's, for me, I found that a really confronting idea to start off with, that my partner was like an advocate for someone who would condone that sort of relationship, because personally I have no desire to be in a polygamous relationship. Like I would not fucking thrive in that sort of environment, and it's because I have a traditional Western idea of that, and I don't want to share myself. I don't want to, and we were literally just talking about it in bed the other night, about what it would look like if you were in an open relationship. And I'm like, okay, so like, let's say we were in an open relationship. Like, so Ellen, Ryan was saying that there's a complete emotional detachment from like, if you go out and have sex with a girl, you can just have mindless sex, you can go fuck someone and you don't want to be in a relationship. You want to go back to your wife and like, or your girlfriend and stuff like that. And it's a complete different divide. I was like, okay, well, females obviously don't think like that, which I'll never understand. Like, I think a lot of females would be able to agree that they would never be able to comprehend just like going out on fucking someone at nighttime and then coming back to their partner and doing so. But I'm like, okay, so like if you were able to do that, like in our hypothetical, we were just having like a full-on DMM discussion. I'm not going to delve into it, but I was like, if that was the case for you and you were able to go out and fuck whoever you wanted to, would I be able to also do the same? That I could fuck any dude that I wanted to and I could have the same restraints? And he said, no, fuck no. No, I don't want my girlfriend doing it. And then I was just like, well, you can see that is completely one-sided. Like that is not an equal partnership and an equal relationship. And I think it's the same thing with Tate. And that's where I really disagree, because I think it's important we talk about things we agree and disagree. He's being an advocate that like men should be able to have multiple relationships, but he does not want his women to be able to have multiple relationships and they would be solely loyal to just him. He's the primary caretaker, and it's the type of women that he would draw, because the women that he has multiple relationships with, they are signing up to be completely looked after, that they have everything that they want possession-wise. They have a beautiful house. They have a beautiful family. They do have someone that loves them, but he also loves other people as well. And there is a certain woman that would sign up for that life and existence, and I am not one of those women. So, yeah.
So what he says is controversial, but it's also... they are fact, as hard as it is to say. Like he says, he is a realist, and a lot of the things he says, I can sit back and see both sides. I can see your point of view and I can see his. Now, what he's saying is maybe controversial in the sense that it's not equal views. So if he was to be able to go out and play up, that she wouldn't. And he refers it back to ancient times, which is his example. Since the dawn of era, from the Bible and the Quran, he says that all kings and all like emperors had multiple wives, and the reason that it was frowned upon by women to have many sexual partners was the fact that you wouldn't know who the father of the child was. Now he's like, up to current day, the current science and medical procedures, you can see who's got the biological father through the DNA. So that sort of cancels that argument, but his values are on the traditional sense that it's always been frowned upon by ancient society that a female was like sleeping around, but it was okay for the male to.
Yeah.
Now, nothing in that statement is actually wrong. That's all just past facts.
History.
It's just literal history. Now, you may not agree with how history wrote itself, but it is still a fact. It is a fact that you can actually prove. So in saying that, yeah.
But my argument.
What was the other things you touched on? When I'm having?
No, I just want to go back to the history stuff and just like to also just like counter.
But do you know what I'm saying? It is a fact.
No, you can't debate that history and the reasoning behind men having multiple women has a reasoning behind it in history. But also, you have to realize that yes, everything has evolved to current Western society, right? His modern day perception of the ideas of history still stands the same. And he's brought it into a new age approach and a new age interpretation. And so even you'll hear Tate talking about the fact that he wants to be with, let's say, younger women because he doesn't want to be with a woman that has been with multiple sexual partners because that brings up like past traumatic experiences, like that brings history with it. So it's better to just start off with a fresh slate. Now, do I agree with that? Absolutely not. But that's my standard, my interpretation versus like something that's important to me. And I think this is what you guys need to start thinking. It might not be important to other people.
I'm going to interject. So these points that you're making now is what he's been accused for being misogynistic. But that is not misogynistic. That is just someone's values. So if a female was to say, hey, I like really tall dudes or I like only dudes with like brown hair and I like dudes with long dicks and not fucking short little dicks. Yeah. That is your sexual preference. His preference and a lot of other males would sway 100% to what he's saying. Most men would love a younger female. Yeah. And it's the same. It goes in the opposite for females. Most females want an older man.
No, they don't.
Most females do. That's
a broad stereotype that you're saying most. You say some. Some men, some females.
Majority of the girls I ever went to school with, if they were in my year, they would always be dating up. They would never be dating down.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say most. I'm going to say that like
I'm going to say most because
anyway, we can agree to disagree.
We can agree to disagree. You can say some. I can say most females, apart from you, because you've got a fucking stud of a young little.
And you're the what? You're the opposite of what Tate. You're not looking for the young one.
I used to, and then I got to a point in my life where the conversation was so shit that I was like, the older women are where it's at. I actually like to have a conversation and know someone on a deeper level because I love fucking talking.
I am all round better than a fucking younger fucking child.
Literally. I'm not denying that at all. So he's been accused of being misogynistic, but these are just world views. And I would agree that what he said, like, okay, a 25-year-old woman would have more life experience, whether that be positive or negative. I've heard a feminist say, well, the other side of that argument is that a 25-year-old's had more life experience and is more well equipped to be with you rather than a young person that has no life experience. But he's just saying he's using it in the sense of sexual partners and, you know. But he's saying like if there's two younger people, he's almost getting back to the point he wants someone pure, which is a virgin, because if you had two 20-year-olds, is a guy going to go for the one that's had sex with 20 people or sex with one person? But most likely the one.
But like,
that's how males
I know,
think.
but I'm just like, as a female, let's just go for the logic of it. For instance, like you might, if they're both 20 years old and one has multiple sexual partners and one has never had sex before, it depends on the male too. Like, do I want to teach that person my ways and what I like? Or do I want an option that's had experience and knows what the fuck she's doing? Like, that's a gamble, right?
That's the one they had on the Nelk podcast. So one of the Nelk boys was like, there was like four guys talking about this. Yeah. One of the guys said, I want the one with this many roots, which was like 20 or something like that. This many sexual partners. Yeah. And then everyone was like, Tate and the other two hosts were like, what? No guy would say that. And he's like, well, they've got more experience. And he's like, so you want someone that's had this many penises through them is the words they were using. Yeah. And then boys were like, no, like everyone would go for the one that hasn't got any.
But can we also like pose the idea just from a female perspective for this concept as well? All right, let's say you are posed with like a 25-year-old male, right? And when you guys hear it in this way, you're going to be like, fuck, I would choose the one that hasn't. Well, most of you, I would assume. So you've got the 25-year-old guy who's fucked 50 girls, right? And then you've got the 25-year-old guy that's had 2 relationships and is like really solid and cool and normal. Like, you, for the most females, would choose.
Are you saying guys that have had sex 50 times aren't normal?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
That's
it's not
so
unnormal.
misogynistic of
it's actually not. And you're just like twisting
I'm
my
joking.
words.
That's a joke.
Well,
It's literally
not
a
funny.
joke.
I'm on a conversation here. You're trying to be a little bit like old Pierre's over there trying to twist my words. Absolutely not in this neck of the woods. But when you're posed with the option with like the perceived idea of stability and like that someone's not going to cheat on you and that they haven't had multiple sexual partners so that maybe they are the safer option, a lot of people will choose the safer option. I chose the fuckboy. I chose the other option, guys. I chose the one with the multiple sexual partners, right? But like, I don't think that for... Like when it comes down to, let me finish. I don't think it comes down to for when females are looking for a future sexual partner or a future partner in general of how many people that they've fucked in the past, which is why I just get so confused with this whole conversation in the start point, because like the amount of sexual partners that you've had in the past should have absolutely no relevance to what is happening in the present moment with the way that you feel about someone and the way that you want to go forward with a person. Like your past should not define your future. And that's where I have like more so of a problem with this concept and this idea of defining women by age and experience, because it should be how you feel in that moment in that time. And I think that's very much male psychology versus female psychology and the way that women interpret and think about things versus men.
On that, there's like a few ways you could go with that argument also. So the fact that someone's had 50 sexual partners may mean they're very well... To have 50 sexual partners, you need to have some certain level of game.
Yes.
Good looks, charisma, all that goes with it.
Or a lot of money to pay for the prostitutes.
Or that, if you want to go down that route as well, that's another route entirely. So if someone has only had 2 sexual partners, whether they be like long-term relationships or whether they've been single the whole time and they could only manage to have sex twice.
Yeah.
So you could either go down the route of, okay, that guy's a fuckboy because he's got 50 roots. Maybe he's just a guy that likes having sex and doesn't want to be held down in relationships, their own decision. And also the fact that they obviously have some level of game. Whereas if the other person has only had 2 sexual partners, maybe they're a bit weird. Maybe they're a bit strange. Why is it their beliefs that they've only had so less, or is it because they would love to have 50, but they literally can't? They're just weirdos. Maybe they can't seal the deal. There's so many different ways you can take that argument.
But that's like where I've just said, like literally, like it shouldn't be a discussion and an argument about how many sexual partners you've had and defining you as a human. It should be the way that I am feeling about that person in the moment right now and their future, like the right now.
But all in all, what we're saying with this argument, we've gone off on a tangent, is that this is some of the things he's getting banned for, just opinions. So he's just having an opinion like this. These are just different views, values, beliefs.
Ideas,
and he's been ripped off and cancelled for having beliefs.
Which he absolutely shouldn't. As far as I'm concerned, like if we're meant to be in a free world where you're able to discuss whatever you want to and you're allowed to have an opinion, and your opinion does not have to be like Ryan and I are very big advocates. That's why we started the podcast. Your opinion doesn't have to be the same as everybody else, but you don't deserve to get completely cancelled from society because your opinion doesn't conform with the norm.
Yeah. So he's actually going to be a lot bigger than what he ever was, I think. He's moved to Rumble.
He's working his way back into society.
And everyone's like, so what he says is like they literally, the Matrix, as he calls society, has shot every bullet at him. Like every fake article he's actually had an excuse for.
Not an excuse. He's just been any fake piece of news that's come up and manipulated information that's come out. And I think that this is a really eye-opening experience and what people should be more aware of. When you are consuming information, particularly on TikTok and Instagram and really, really highly regulated platforms, you are going to be shown one side of the story and your mind is going to be directed and focused. And this is like the prime example of where our society is so fucked up because you are showing one side of the stories. And if someone has a differing opinion, that they are completely cancelled from society. And it just shows you like people with a lot of money, like he's really ruffled feathers in the political world. And so people within the political realm have decided, no, we need to shut this guy up. He is talking about too much. He is too much of a liability. And they're not talking about misogyny and any of those sort of levels.
They cover up conversations. So he was literally saying whatever the issues are in the world, whether it's racism, feminism, gay rights, COVID, anything, it's all surface level stuff to keep us arguing, keep the people that are on the job force, on the front line working, keep us so occupied with our own thoughts that we can't even fucking think to how to like make our own money and form our own opinion. on that, COVID is one of his main points he refers to. So when COVID struck, he literally went to Sweden and fucking partied for 3 months and everything.
Yeah.
But we all know how big a scam and all the lies we got told from COVID were now. So like, I'm just reading a breaking interview. So there was a interview by Rob Ruse. He's an EMP in a COVID hearing yesterday with Pfizer. He had the director of Pfizer admit on video that the vaccination for others was always a lie, and that if you don't get vaccinated, the lie we told, if you don't get vaccinated, it's not for you, it's for other people, et cetera, et cetera. And she literally admitted on stage that they had never tested it, that it would stop the transmission. Yeah. So we're literally fed a lie the whole time, which everyone fucking knows. But the fact that people can just shut you down whenever you want, what he's an advocate for. Add the link
as well. He actually really, I think it was in the initial one that Ryan showed me, that he does kind of go into a discussion, which kind of drew me in at the first place about COVID and just opening your eyes to the techniques that politicians use and the cover-ups tactics that people use. And like, I think that's like one of the things that I actually really like about Tate is that he is just so acutely aware of human behavior and the tactics of other master manipulators. Like, yes, he is absolutely a master manipulator himself, but he's aware of other people's tactics, but he also likes to put a microscope on those people's tactics so you can then become aware. So like, yes, he might have controversials and ideas and opinions which you completely disagree with and you don't want to behind, but he's also trying to educate you across the way, which isn't selfish. Like, he's literally getting people to become more aware of what's happening around them. He's teaching men in a lot of ways, like, yes, you might not agree with the female situation, but in general, like, he talks about men just as poorly as what he talks about females. Like, I mean, he doesn't talk about females poorly. Sorry, that I want to rephrase that. He talks about men in the way that, like, it is very much easy for social media to pinpoint and be like, he talks about women like this, he's misogynistic, but he says all men are pigs.
For someone who I've watched like probably 20 hours of videos of long form content.
Ryan has too much time on his hands.
Literally, no, I really like value some of his views.
No, I just want to just quickly finish what I was saying though. He talks about men and if you are aware of the way that he talks about it, the whole reason that he's started his war room and stuff.
What you're saying is poorly. He doesn't actually speak poorly. His whole ethos is actually
why he started the war room.
To lift men up because he believes we're becoming too soft. It's like the alpha male type of the come up to bring up what's the term that they use against it. It's toxic masculinity, where it's not even toxic. He's just teaching men to be men, which had ancient core values.
Yeah, he's just saying he's trying to educate men to make more money, to be better, more robust, more educated people in society, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Majority of his content isn't actually about females.
No.
For the amount of stuff that he cops for that, for all the content I've watched, I reckon he's probably talked about females for 15%.
Yeah.
A lot of it's all business, mindset, going to the gym, how are you going to get rich, how are you going to do this?
How to become better, how to make more money so that you can live a life on your terms without having to be worried about being cancelled or shut down and just being able to authentically be yourself.
He's like a lot of females. He's like, right, how are you going to attract a female when you're a fat loser and you play video games 24/7? What's attractive about that?
Yeah.
Fucking nothing. He's like, get off your fucking ass, go to the gym.
Get your ass up and work.
Literally get money. He's like, it's just basic common things.
Yeah.
And he even knows, he says like, you can be manipulated by the media, or he's like, really be self-conscious of where you get your opinions from. So even, we don't hardly watch TV at all anymore. We don't never watch the news. No. It's all manipulating stuff. So
yeah.
And one-sided views where it's like, really take in where you're getting your information. He even says like, I'm manipulating you to have a certain set of views also, but he's like, would you rather be manipulated by me or the news? So it's like, if you agree with 80% of his views, why would you start watching anything else that's not his views. You know what I mean? That's why I watch him, because he's entertaining, and majority of the things
educating,
align with what I think.
I don't think that's what I said from the get-go of this conversation, that like even when you're looking at his marketing techniques, he's an incredibly intelligent man that is adding an extreme amount of value to society, so he shouldn't be cancelled. I think that's so important to bring out of this conversation, that someone that is a high-performing player in our world that could be adding so much value has now been muffled into silence because the way that he has phrased certain things may not have sat right with a lot of people. He might have he should have phrased some things maybe in a better way, and he was the first to admit that, yeah, you know what, I don't disagree with anything that I've ever said. I believe everything that I say, but I could have spoken about it and I could have said it better, which I think that it's just a real shame that he has been cancelled in the way. But also in saying that, like, him being cancelled has also put a spotlight on cancelling people in society, which is generating more conversation and causing more of a ruffle. So I don't know.
It's like sort of been a blessing, and he even says it's one of the best things in his career that's ever happened to him. Yeah. He even speaks about, you need to go to the toilet?
I was going to say we're going to have to wrap up in a second because I got to get back to work.
What?
I know.
I was just going to say how they came after him was really interesting. He literally says they all cancelled him within like the same week, which I found crazy, that some of these top end companies must
YouTube,
all conspire,
Instagram, Twitter,
all tied in with each other. It's really, really crazy. He said he's like, banks even like cancelled his money. Like they said, hey, we don't want you banking with us.
He's like, I couldn't Uber something.
It was like Uber, his banks, like YouTube, everything, like every subscription.
Try to push him out of society.
And the same time,
even his business, they tried to cut his business, right?
They tried to cut his web domain.
Yeah.
So he could stop earning money. Like just everything. They just came after him so hard. That's the perfect
example, guys. Like someone that's deemed as, let's say, misogynist. So let's say that was the reason that they're trying to get him out. Do you think that a misogynist person should be completely cancelled from society, even though that might be like one fragment of them that you disagree with? And he's not even misogynistic.
But that's what he's saying. It's the cover up. It's because he's talking about the political stuff, how the world is run, who the shadow figures are that are overseeing the government. There's figures out there that have more money than the government. The government are just like...
He's just opening people's eyes to he's just purely doing that. Like, wake up and like get your head out of scrolling TikTok and the mindless bullshit that you are consuming, and actually do your own research. Open your eyes, be more analytical, ask questions, and say your opinion.
Listen to what they're telling you and then make your own view.
Yeah.
It's like when you meet someone and someone's talking shit about them and you're like, and they obviously have beef with them, but like, I like that person. So it's like, I can make my own views about someone. You don't need someone to tell you your views. And that's what everyone was getting manipulated.
Example, like on social media, right? Think about how many people you know that like are on social media that are scorned by society. Maybe it's tabloids, maybe it's on TikTok. Like they frame the person, they make them this real villain.
Oh, 100%. After I've seen like so much long form content and the fake headlines after watching a long form video on it, I'm like, wow, anything else I read, like something about like Nick Kyrgios, I even know he throws tantrums and stuff, and he's always in the paper about throwing a tennis racket or just anything that pops up. They try and put a spotlight on.
But it's like they would take like people. That's the prime example. You don't know any of the context.
I'm just like, I don't believe any of that shit anymore. You don't know anything.
And also, like even for the Kyrgios situation, like he like might throw some tantrums on the tennis court, but then like society is then like saying like, oh, he's like a rapist, he's a womanizer, like, and they would use that as leverage to then make him a bad person and a villain in society. Like I'm not sure about the logistics of that, but that would be an easy way for tabloids and for anyone that is trying to just get rid of him to be able to like leverage off of that one thing that person said or that one misinterpretation to then completely remove them from society. So I
just had another note there. I just wanted to touch on this. So the reason he's gone so big obviously is because of the values and the views of the other people that align with him. One of his other ones was he's...
Ryan just won't stop, guys. Like, I'm like, it's like 57 minutes in. And I'm just going to delve into another heavy discussion about one of his
I could literally go on for hours. But anyway, this has been a great episode of part 1 of 10.
Honestly, guys, if I sat here, Ryan would probably be like, look, let's just stay here for another 3 hours and just really hash it out.
Rogan does 4 hours. Why can't we?
Because I'm not Joe Rogan with his time in a day,
And he departs, I just keep going, the one-man show.
Off I go.
Toot toot, off you go. So that's our views on the topic. Yeah,
but if you guys want to discuss it more, if you want us to discuss it, definitely hit us up. Let us know if you like us talking more. I guess this is one of the first times that we've kind of gone into a more analytical discussion of a particular culture situation or anything like that. So if you want us to talk about any particular topics or know our opinions on certain things, we love it to hear your opinion as well.
Sweet.
Thanks, guys. Have a beautiful day. Bye.